You can feel the history just seeping out of the walls.
Oh my God, my head.
All right, go ahead, head on out. Try to spread awareness of haunted locations that are endangered. Welcome to Mike's Morning Mug from Haunted Road Media. I'm author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker. Explore with us. So there's a few things that I wanted to talk about today. The first of which is energy transference at haunted locations, because this came up in our Inside the Upside Down episode this past Tuesday night, which if you're unfamiliar with that comes on about 10:45 p.m. after our Edge of the Rabbit Hole show. So Tuesday nights are full of different paranormal themed shows. So now, the example that I ended up using was my grandmother and her birth, and I'm bringing this up today really because today is the anniversary of her birthday. She passed away a few years ago, but she would have been 96 today. In any case, this also got brought up because it was Thanksgiving. And the story goes, my great-grandmother had prepared all of the Thanksgiving dinner, was already served, all of that, and she ended up going upstairs in their old house to have my grandmother. So, you know, hell of a woman there to prepare all of Thanksgiving dinner and then go deliver a baby. So would there have been some sort of like massive energy transference there on that particular day? Would that still be lingering in that house, wherever it is, because I actually don't know where that particular house is. Would it still be there today? So the energy of all of this holiday preparation, that's really how it came up, you know, holiday energy lingering around from Thanksgivings, Christmases, whatever. And for that one, it's like, yeah, that was on a holiday. It was the birth of a baby. There's a lot going on. Maybe. Of course, I've never been to that house. I don't even know if it's still standing. But still, the theory is postulated and put out there of energy transference, because that's where we think a lot of these different haunts come from, especially residual haunts, that there is an energy transference when this event happens, whether it's trauma or, you know, something extremely stressful, what have you, and that energy gets trapped in the surrounding area and then somehow it's played back. So a lot of people call this like stone tape theory, even though it may not necessarily be stone, but somehow that energy is trapped within the location and then there's a trigger that sets it off and it plays out. Like in that other little room, I'm feeling the tingling here as well. That's why I stopped there, but I didn't want to say anything to the homeowner. I'm feeling it in this room as well. Hey, Shauna?
Yes.
You want to come here, please? I feel it in here too.
I can hear.
Yeah, I'm getting tingling like arms, face.
Mine is right here. Just started tingling back here.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my head. Oh God.
All right, go ahead. Head on out.
What's that? It's not like really bad, but it's
strong.
All of a sudden started.
It's strong. I don't know if it's bad or not. It's just strong. But whatever that may be, when we go into a haunted location, I want to know as many of these type of details as possible. And I know others disagree with that. They don't want to know anything going into a location. But for me, it can be used as a trigger object going into a haunted location and to really learn more about it. You know, I feel that going into some of these haunted locations, searching for paranormal activity and not knowing a thing, well, you're really kind of set up behind the 8 ball. You know, for one, if it's an intelligent haunt and you're trying to interact with them, you don't know a thing about them. Why are they going to want to interact with you if you're some stranger that's walked into, you know, their house, if it, you know, happens to be a house? If you go walk into a location like that, asking 1,000 different questions, to me, the only type of person that would really do something like that would be like a salesman. Total stranger walking in, don't know a thing about you. I'm gonna start asking 100 questions. That's kind of the way it comes off to me. Others may think differently, but that's one guy's opinion. Well, like I said, any of that information can be used as a trigger object. So if I'm knowing something about this person and can start to try to interact with them a little bit, like, hey, you know, I've learned this about you and I've learned that about you. You know, what else can you possibly tell me? Because basically I want to either confirm what has already been known through history or find out more information to piggyback on it. Because a lot of our history that we have, stories passed on down through time that may have changed or morphed along the way. So I want to know, I want to find out, did this really happen? Did it really happen that way? Were there other people involved? Are there other details that we don't know about that you can help us fill in the gaps a little bit? And so I've talked about things like this before in an article I wrote some years back called History and the Paranormal, a Working Relationship, because they really do work hand in hand, where the more that we learn about history and we get involved with it, like a living history, the more that we will learn about the paranormal, because without history, we don't have the paranormal. We don't have these haunted locations. It takes that history. It takes things to have happened for paranormal activity to exist. Now, I will say that's different for psychic mediums. Of course, they can't know a thing going in. Otherwise, how could they possibly just play, oh, I know that like so-and-so is here, when they already know the information, right? I get that. I'm talking about, just your regular basic, paranormal investigator going into a location. Not that I necessarily consider myself basic, but you get it. Of course, there's always the argument that if you know all of these things, you'll pigeonhole yourself into a couple of particular spots at a haunted location, whether it's a building, battleground, whatever it may be. You're going to stick to these one or two particular spots. Well, as a human being, I have a brain, and so I'm smart enough to know not to do that. And while yes, I may go to a few of these locations that are quote unquote known hotspots, I'm going to spread it around and move around. If I'm not getting anything at that location, well, there's nothing going on there right now. So I'll move on to another spot. There may not be anything going on there at all throughout the entire location. You can't make paranormal happen on demand. Maybe the environment isn't right. Maybe they just don't want to talk to you, even if you have all this information. But I will say that, to me, knowing a few things and having something to relate to the spirits that are there is really helpful. Just a quick example, a few years back we were investigating an old army hangar, and we were inside one of the old World War II airplanes. Well, we're asking questions, trying to do an EVP session, got some meters set up, nothing's going on. Well, we're getting kind of down to the wire, thinking maybe we're gonna pack it up here. And so I finally mentioned, hey, I spent some time in the Air Force. I understand and I know that the Air Force came out of the Army Air Corps, of which you flew for, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 we start getting some activity. So to me, a prime example of having something to relate back to the spirits that are there, knowing a few things that they were willing to open up and communicate. Now, a residual haunt, that energy transference that we were talking about before that just kind of gets trapped there, you're not going to really have so much of that. But if you know a few things about the location and a residual haunt kicks off, well, now you have something to relate it to and understand, okay, this is why this is happening here, because this is the history of the location. These are the things that happened. And you may even have a wonderful opportunity to see some of that history actually play out, and maybe you'll get a little bit of a different take on how it really happened. So that's not all I wanted to talk to you today over our mug of coffee. There's a few things that are going on here at Haunted Road Media that I also want to talk to you about that have to do with history and the paranormal and that relationship, and in that we're losing so many of these locations over time. It's already happened for hundreds of years. A lot of these locations have either been torn down, lost to an arson fire, which has happened with the Goldenrod Showboat. Just maybe it's a natural disaster that's happened. So many of these parts of our history are just gone, and there's fewer and fewer of them that are still around for us to be able to enjoy and experience. And so, like I said, with the Goldenrod Showboat, and this is kind of really the thing that's kind of spurred our activity, that's really heightened it, that being lost to an arson fire, the last type of showboat of its kind, that was really a great hit. There was so much charm to that boat, and the people that burned it down just didn't care about it whatsoever. They just wanted to get it off the land. And just that blatant disrespect is an absolute tragedy, and I'm not going to get a ton into that right now. I have an entire video from a couple weeks ago about all that you can watch here, and I'll go ahead and link it as a card here that you can go back and watch that. But there's really been a catalyst here, even though we were already doing some work here where, with some of the books, with Encounters with Paranormal 2, with Encounters with Paranormal 3, that part of the proceeds of those books were going to help some of these locations. But, those little bit of donations from those books aren't enough. And so we've started an initiative here on Haunted Road Media where we're presenting more awareness. So out at the Haunted Road Media Facebook page, we've started a video series out there to talk about a lot of these different topics here relating to historic locations, how they're endangered, how we don't want to lose them, and what we're going to try to do. I don't know if I want to say to fix all that, but to try to make some sort of change occur to help save these locations. It's a great example of stories and misinformation and really what happens to a location when it's just like really let go. So right now you're looking at the bowels of what people like to call the Gore Orphanage. Really it was the Swift Mansion. It's always been misinterpreted as the Gore Orphanage because of the road up here. We have the big series that we're doing right now, trying to spread awareness of haunted locations that are endangered. You know, these historic locations that are about to meet the wrecking ball. We just had, everything happened with the Goldenrod Showboat back in October, where it was an arson fire. It was they burned it down to get rid of it. Hey Dave, how you doing? And so, we did have the books, and we still have the books that we're putting out. Where part of the proceeds go to help these locations, but we're starting a much bigger project, a much bigger venture here. And so I wanted to come out here as an example of what happens when we just let things just go to waste. And you're just seeing that this was the basement of the location. I'm standing right now on what had been the front steps. You can kind of see, and we kind of pan this up a little bit. You can kind of see the steps that actually went up a little bit. Once they're gone, we can never get them back, and there's no amount of a photograph that you can look at that can actually take you into the location for you to actually be able to experience for yourself. There might be a few items out there on a display in a museum, what have you, but it's just not the same as actually being able to walk into this location and feel that energy on you. We talked about at the beginning of this about energy transference, the energy that is still in there from the history of the things that have happened at this location. When you walk in, you actually can feel a lot of that history just surround you. And that's one of the things that I love about what we do here with the paranormal, is going into so many of these locations, and you can feel the vibe within the place. You can feel the history just seeping out of the walls, and you can actually feel it upon your body. A lot of these different things that have happened there, you can feel the history. Seriously, you can feel the people that once graced this location. It's something that you just can't replicate, that you can't recreate, that only that amount of time that has passed to be able to collect all of this energy within its walls that can create this vibe, that can create this energy within the location. And one of the hardest things for these locations to do is to raise money. And some of them will have fundraisers, have events that help out. They will host tours, and that'll bring in some funds. Of course, there's paranormal investigations going on at a lot of these locations now, which also helps to bring in some funds. Some of them, unfortunately, don't want to do paranormal investigations because they don't want to be associated with those people, which is really quite sad, because running those paranormal investigations out of there, they can actually earn a bit of money there to help preserve this location. So look for more from Haunted Road Media down the road here in awareness that we're going to bring, and in different ways that we'll be able to contribute to the funding of these different haunted locations that are becoming more and more endangered. Like I said, right now this is being chronicled out at Facebook, and I'll keep it up to date here on the YouTube channel as well. Of course, we'll be talking about it more on the Edge of the Rabbit Hole show and on the Inside the Upside Down shows, and occasionally here in Mike's Morning Mug. We talk about a lot of different things here in Mike's Morning Mug, but we're not going to just constrict it to that. And of course, we also have all of our investigation videos, which you can probably bet during an investigation we're going to mention that. Well, that's about all I have for today. Just wanted to spend about 5 or 10 minutes with you over a mug of coffee talking about a few things in regards to energy transference and what we're doing here at Haunted Road Media to try to help and save these different haunted locations. So look forward to much more coming out on that. I'm Mike Ricksecker. Till next time.